Welcome back to Generation Changes podcast. Now, I know what you all might be thinking. It has been 2 months since we've released a podcast, but you know what they say, life gets in the way. So, without further ado, who are we and what do we do? We are an awareness initiative with two primary goals. Firstly, to foster a heightened understanding of gender inequality, both within Malaysia and on a global scale, among the general public as well. Secondly, to equip and inform youth with the requisite knowledge and competencies to effectively combat this pervasive issue, gender inequality, particularly within developing nations, stand as an acute concern that necessitates urgent attention. With the rapid surge of women in the workforce, it becomes imperative to fortify equality across domains encompassing opportunities, remuneration, benefits, and various other pertinent aspects. The central thrust of this project resides in the cultivation of awareness from a very early stage, thereby nurturing the growth of prospective leaders who will steer the change towards gender parity. Within the context of this initiative, our podcast will be exposing you, the listener, to a myriad of pressing issues that underscore the significance of gender equality. We'll also be covering topics ranging from the fundamental right to birth control to the vexing predicament of the pink tax, the necessity of equal opportunity, and many more. Tune in to our podcast and listen to breakdowns and discussions surrounding the systems upholding gender inequality in our day-to-day lives. I'm Denisha Naya, here on the Generation Change of Rosma. On today's episode, we will be discussing the challenges that women face in STEM industry and exploring strategies that overcome these gender biasness and discrimination. So, as we mentioned in the last episode, we mentioned about gender disparities in the STEM field and quite a number of statistics as well, like how only 28% of the world's researchers are women. Now, let's get to the main part. Why are the reasons that gender disparities in STEM that women face from school to work? Let's have a great and big look at this one. Starting with primary and secondary school. Maths and science education. Maths and science. That's the first impression that we get when we think about maths and science. When we have the first impression of English or any other languages, we think, ooh, that's so dreamy. But maths and science education, here's a fun fact. Millions of girls are deprived of opportunities to build their skills, including in STEM. 125 million of girls of primary and secondary age in the developing world are out of school. Girls' exclusion from education begins early and increases over the time in their lifetime. While the vast majority of adolescent girls of upper secondary age begin primary education, fewer than half make it to the upper secondary level where STEM skills can be further solidified. Is that not an issue these days now? Despite the problems above, girls do not have problems in their ability to learn maths and science. It's just a mindset, a placebo effect, one might say. At the secondary level, the proportion of girls achieving the minimum proficiency level in maths and science are equal or higher than boys in most countries, according to UNICEF. However, achieving a minimum proficiency is not sufficient to effectively participate in society, yet fewer girls than boys achieve higher proficiency levels in STEM in most countries. At upper secondary as well, fewer girls choose STEM majors. Guilty to say, I myself have not continued to take a STEM major. I'm still only taking chemistry because chemistry might be one of the most feminine STEM subjects, I would argue. But let's get on to the next one. When we talk about gender digital divide, which would say gender gaps in digital skills are wider in developing countries than in developed countries. In developing countries, the gender digital divide constrains girls' development of digital skills. Gender norms pose yet another obstacle. In sub-Saharan Africa, boys gain more in digital skills when they are in school compared to girls. Now, why is that happening? When girls do use the computer or internet, they exhibit similar cognitive and behavioral skills as boys. What differentiates boys and girls? We're just the same. Girls are at least as good at solving problems in technology-rich environments as most boys in countries. Likewise, there appears to be a small gender difference and no consistent pattern in gender gaps when it comes to problem solving and online skills. But when it comes to advanced digital skills, women lag behind men everywhere, where very few countries can boast that 10% or more women with programming skills. But 31 can point to at least 10% of men with these skills. There is also evidence to suggest that even when adolescent girls outperform boys in computer and information literacy, they lag behind boys in computational thinking skills. Why are there still gender gaps, ladies and gentlemen? Girls lower their self-esteem, which is linked to gender gaps in the STEM engagement, which would include their interests and enjoyment. While girls value scientific approaches to inquiry at least as much as boys, they have a lower interest in science, except maybe health, and lower participation in science activities in most countries. Well, in maths as well, girls show lower interest and enjoyment. Fewer girls than boys aspire to careers in science, technology, engineering, or even among top performers. Being capable or confident in STEM does not mean that girls want to pursue STEM careers. In almost all countries, more boys than girls aspire to have a career in science, engineering, or tech. Gender gaps in STEM engagement, interest, enjoyment, and future career aspirations are shaped by gender norms, bias, and look who we have here. Stereotype. Gender bias in curriculum, more than 50% of illustrations in maths and science textbooks in primary shows that there are only boys and only only 6% of girls. Gender bias in parental expectations, which would say 50% of parents in Chile, Hungary, and Portugal expect their sons to have a STEM career, but less than 20% had this expectation for their daughters. What separates women and men now, ladies and gentlemen? Gender bias in teaching expectations. 20% of grade 6 math teachers in Latin America believe that math is easier for boys to learn. That's kind of weird now, isn't it? Gender biasness in classrooms. Girls have less instructional and discussion time, ask you for questions, and receive lesser praise than boys, which condemns a girl's confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any of your own experiences, feel free to share with us through our Instagram page as well. Let's see what we have here next. In tertiary education, gender gaps in aspirations and attitudes at secondary level affects their choices at a tertiary level, which we would want to include in your university or college. Globally, only 18% of girls in tertiary education are pursuing STEM studies compared to 35% of boys. Even within the STEM fields, there lies a gender divide, with similar numbers of boys and girls pursuing natural sciences, while far more boys look towards engineering, manufacturing, and construction. In jobs now, women find themselves underrepresented in STEM jobs. Women comprise about 40% of the STEM workforce. Women are well represented in health, but they are also accurately underrepresented in engineering, technology jobs, and in STEM jobs of the future. Here's a fun statistic for us all. Only 12% of women in cloud computing, 15% of women in engineering. That does not sound like many numbers to me. Women's underrepresentation in STEM careers is shaped by gender stereotypes, bias, and norms. Like I said, stereotypes again. Gender stereotypes and lack of role models affect girls' interest in STEM from a very early age. Yet, even when women get STEM degrees, many do not pursue STEM jobs. Gender discrimination and bias at work also discourage women from entering or remaining in STEM jobs. Here's another one. Women of color in STEM face unique challenges. As much as we don't look into this matter, it is becoming more significant as we would have expected, as women of color, or the PC term these days, which is known as POC, people of color, face more disparities and are often blindsided by society. Black and Hispanic Americans remain underrepresented in the STEM career. A 2018 Pew Research Center reported that Black Americans make up 9% of STEM workers, but 11% of overall workforce. Sounds horrible. Hispanic Americans make up 7% of STEM workers and 16% of the workforce. Women of color face some of the biggest hurdles in the STEM occupations. Might I add, I might be one of them. In 2022, Black and Hispanic and Indigenous women and other underrepresented women of color made up less than 10% of the STEM workforce in the United States. Women of color also leave STEM career tracks at every stage of the education. Black and Hispanic undergraduates declare STEM majors at the same rate, while white students are more likely to switch majors to pursue a non-STEM degree. Well, what are the ways or strategies to overcome these gender bias and discrimination? So here's the general info about gender discrimination. Gender discrimination is the unequal treatment of people based on the gender. That includes granting privileges to a certain gender or marginalizing someone because of their gender identity. Unequal pay, sexual harassment, and restricted of or maybe eliminated access to rights like education and healthcare are forms of gender discrimination. On an individual level, perhaps, stopping gender discrimination requires an internal reflection and willingness to change. As the data makes it very clear, however, gender discrimination is a systemic issue. The World Economic Forum estimates that it will take 135.6 years. I would say again, 135.6 years to reach gender equality. Well, let's unlock some of the keys where we can end discrimination. The first way would be to have a diverse role model to promote diversity in STEM fields. The inclusion of diverse STEM role models in common media outlets promotes diversity in STEM fields and fosters a positive association of women and STEM from an early age and onwards. In films, men are depicted in STEM professions at 5 times the rate at which women are depicted. Family films, men are 14 times more likely to be depicted in STEM professions than women. Geez. A 2016 report from the Obama White House highlighted 3 ways in which the entertainment industry can increase diverse STEM content. The first one will be increasing the representation of STEM professionals. Second, emphasizing the variety of STEM occupations. And last but not least, discrediting existing STEM misconceptions. There's a positive evidence to support that this approach is effective. For example, a recent study found that female 9th and 10th grade students perform better in science when the images in the textbook include counter-stereotypic images of female scientists. Another study found that exposure to non-stereotypical role models increased the self-efficacy of female computer scientists. Let's take another look at the second way where we can empower women in the workplace, such as labs. In most workplaces, there are more men than women in high-level positions. The gender pay gap also persists in many places and intersects with race, ethnicity. Gender discrimination can be tackled by offering paid leave and childcare, supporting more women in senior roles, reviewing salaries as well. It should also be remembered that the COVID-19 pandemic had a very big effect on workplace gender equality. More women than men left their jobs, often because women tend to do more childcare. Oxfam International estimated that women lost more than 64 million while 3.9% of the men's jobs were lost, which is a lot. Here's the third way, which might seem a little bit confusing for our younger viewers listening to our podcast. It's okay. We learn as we grow. Well, the third way could be if we enforce a legislative action for pay equity. Transparency narrows the gender wage gap in STEM. The gender pay gap is nuanced. The gender pay gap is smallest in life science disciplines and the largest in computer science and engineering. A recent Bloomberg report on the best paid jobs in STEM calculate that female computer systems analysts and electrical engineers earn 85 cents for every dollar men earn. What about the 15 cents that they earn extra? What about us? These gaps persist even after controlling for demographic variables like race, family, and something I absolutely hate, seniority. However, creating effective policies rely on accurate representative data. Acquiring such data is very challenging, especially from private companies. To address this, many countries require private companies to make their pay data public. Since 2017, all large UK companies must publish mean and median hourly wages. All bonuses, as well as the proportion of males and females receiving bonuses and the proportion of males and females in each pay quartile. German companies with more than 500 employees must publish regular reports on gender parity. Studies on the gender wage gap in STEM primarily rely on sample surveys and smaller pools of respondents. It can be really challenging to gain population level statistics for implementing nationwide policies without census level reporting of pay data. However, countries around the world are taking action upon this very vital matter. Sounds like a lot of statistics now, ladies and gentlemen. This is something that we don't talk about so much, that we tend to blindside the issues that are going on in our everyday lives, where the gender pay gap is extremely nuanced. Well, let's take it the fourth way where we can overcome this gender pay gap disparity. Okay, the fourth, last but not least way would be enforcing extracurricular STEM programs that would lead to a higher number of women majoring in STEM disciplines by nurturing them from a young age, I would say. First, for inspiration and recognition of science and technology, which is a research and robotics community open to students from kindergarten through grade 12. That is a long time. First, competitions and challenges focus on current problems facing the STEM community, while it also estimates from a 2016 National Science Board report that indicates 13.7% of men and 2.6% of women entering college intend to major in engineering. Male and female alumni of first programs intend to major in engineering at the rate of 67% and 47% respectively. These after-school programs aid in the retention of students who are interested in engineering by maintaining interest through the time they enter college. An important aspect of drawing more women to STEM is letting them know that they belong there. One thing that women don't ever feel is that they belong anywhere. So empowering young women to get involved in current real-world issues like climate action, poverty, sustainability plays a really big part. Pretty Brainy, a program developed by the Women's Foundation of Colorado, uses a methodology called design thinking to capture students' interest to serve their communities and develop authentic solutions. The results of this methodology are highly encouraging. According to a survey by Pretty Brainy in 2018, the program led to an increased interest in innovation and design in 100% of the surveyed girls. A stronger interest in science and technology as a direct consequence by the program was reported by 92% of surveyed girls. Well, unfortunately, we have reached the end of the podcast for today's episode. Seems like a lot of information to take in, so let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned. It is clear that the road to achieving true gender equality in the STEM field is quite bumpy. So now remember, change starts with awareness and action, like the AA battery, I would say. So whether you're a budding scientist, a curious listener, or just someone passionate about making the world a fairer place, just like me, let's keep the conversation going. Together, we can challenge stereotypes, uplift underrepresented voices, and create an inclusive future where everyone has a chance to shine like a supernova in vast cosmos of STEM. I'm Denisha Naya signing out. See you on the next episode for Generation Change under Rasma. Good night, everybody.